You're listening to Overlooked Pictures, a film commentary podcast
about lesser-known films we feel have been overlooked,
or well-known films containing aspects we feel have been overlooked,
done in the form of a real-time audio commentary,
intended to be played alongside the film in question
as
you
what?
listen. Hello, David.
Hi, Jules.
How's things?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm very hot. It's this crazy heat wave.
We are in the middle of the, possibly not even yet in the middle of the Australian summer. And I do believe we might hit play at this point.
Oh, okay.
Because the titles roll on for a bit. And we are, boom, into the sparkly bits and
Yes.
resolving to the United Artists
Excellent.
logo. So this is quite an American in Paris sort of experience.
It is.
With our Italian director, spicing up the mix a bit.
Sure.
There's a whole
Okay,
probably
Alberto
genre of Americans
Grimaldi.
in Paris. Aren't there? Yes, we're looking now at the first of two Francis Bacon paintings, and we'll be
Marlon Brando in
getting
Lost Tango in Paris.
we'll be getting to study these for quite a while as all the credits roll.
There's the music being cued in.
So, what do you think about these Francis Bacon paintings?
Well,
Jules?
he's actually here in Sydney right now. The Archive of New South Wales is doing a show.
Francis isn't. His paintings are, yes.
Yeah.
I think Francis is dead, isn't he?
He's pushing up daisies somewhere.
Yes. Now, I'm assuming this is some kind of image of the Brando character, really. A slightly grotesque,
Lethargic, meaty.
yet obviously someone with an inner life, somewhat tortured inner life, I think. Alone in a room.
Yeah, with this weird, what's a rug or something on top of a chaise lounge or...
Curious bit of Bacon-esque furniture
Yeah.
there. Interesting, Bacon's paintings tended to look like bacon a bit.
Yeah, it does. You could fry this.
It's like you could fry this guy, yeah. Now, apparently, Bertolucci did take Brando to look at these paintings and get something from them about his character, and he said something about this as a man sort of being somewhat distorted and eaten up by something inside him. That was Bertolucci's take on it, anyway.
Right.
I've got no idea what Bacon's take on all that would have been, whether he was...
Bacon or Brando?
Bacon.
Oh, okay.
Whether that was, I see them as kind of, like I said, lumps of meat. I wonder how much he's looking into the soul of the figures in these paintings.
I'm not sure.
Not that it really matters, but we do have to sit here and look at these paintings for quite a while as the credits.
Oh, Vittorio Storaro, one of the greatest cinematographers in history.
Oh, is he really? What else has he done?
Man, what hasn't he done?
What hasn't he done?
Well, I can reel them off.
He's like the mafia
Sheltering
of
Sky.
cinematography. He's just...
I think he was Last Emperor. I'm not sure actually about Last Emperor. He did the Coppola film, the Vietnam Apocalypse Now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He was the DOP on Apocalypse Now.
He was the guy, and apparently
Wow.
he didn't get mud on him. There's some quote from Coppola saying that somehow, I think it was Storaro, somehow Storaro was able to wear white clothing in the middle of the jungle and do his job and not get dirty. So, so he was like quite something like a prince or something.
Oh, well done.
Oh, opening shot. So this is an interesting crane shot, and we have a man.
A tortured man.
Yeah, he is.
Screaming out, fucking God.
He looks like an insane dude.
As a
Already.
train passes overhead. This is that famous sort of bit of Paris where I think the French Connection ran a car through here, and
I don't think the French
it was
Connection
in
actually took place in France. That was in Chicago.
Inception. Oh no, you're probably right. No, it's San
Inception.
Francisco. Well, it looked a lot like
This
that.
looks like Inception. I agree.
It looked a hell of a lot like that. Now here's the chance meeting.
Yeah,
A chance romance as young Maria Schneider passes dangerously close to the obviously disturbed Marlon Brando.
Yeah, he looks like a pre-hobo. He's too clean yet, but just give him time.
Yeah. No, he's too smart to be living on the street, I think.
Too smart.
Too smart to be living on the street, to be dossing. But he's clearly been squeezed out of the world a bit. He looks very alone and disturbed.
Yeah. And the beautiful imagery. So that long corridor of columns, it was this kind of historical, but Victorian sort of tech, or Victorian.
Yeah.
I don't know what the period was, but There's a gel-like quality to it. Is he crying?
Marlon's crying. Brando's crying. And
So,
he's
and it's cold.
looking up at a window.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's the window where Rudy Jules Verne.
Yeah, Jules Verne. Never know.
This is the flat that they're both going to go and check out. And
I think this would be called a pensione if we were in Italy.
Yeah.
There are a lot of Italians making this film, but in
it
France,
might be a pension in France.
They have a similar. What does it say? Appartement à l'heure.
Actually, I would disagree. I think a pension is basically a hotel, so it would not be an empty.
This is not a hotel.
It wouldn't be an empty flat. No.
Oh, this is an actual, not a boarding house, but there's a woman at the front desk. It looks like a hotel. It's the black woman. We're about to see.
Yeah, but I think French apartments. Going by the movies, they often have these minders living on the ground floor, sort of taking care of the place, who may often be the owners, I suppose. And as it turns out, this is Marlon's job in the film. He is a hotelier. Now, something really nice happens here with this woman putting her teeth in. It's just a really nice cut.
Oh, wow. And the black toothbrush.
And that really fast cut just shumped the teeth going in. I quite like that.
So was that extemporaneous? Do you think someone noticed that there was a woman who had false teeth? It was like, darling, please come in here and, let's see. Yeah. Or do you think that was part of the script? I wonder.
Well, that's a good question.
It's not that good a question. But it goes to the motivation.
Except that I can't answer it.
No, that's fine. It was a rhetorical question. Brando just looks great. He looks like some sort of Greek statue the whole time.
Yeah, he's got that nose. He's got a very Roman sort of nose.
Is that what it is?
Or Greek, if you like.
I'll have to watch.
Statuesque nose.
And she's got some legs.
Yeah.
So, did Maria Shriver, right? What's her name?
Schneider.
Maria Schneider. Did she transform kind of women's sexuality in the 70s, like a compartment of it? I mean, did she change the way women do themselves, in terms of their...
She looks very proto kind of 80s with this get-up that she's got. But I would say she didn't do enough high-profile work.
She did.
Looking at her CV, there's quite a lot of films, but I don't sort of know many of them. She was in The Passenger.
Passenger, yeah.
Well, that's the only other one that I have seen or know of.
Right. She was good in The Passenger, I thought.
Yeah.
There's a sort of foundling quality, this disorganized kind of... when I think of Brando, I think of like an uncontrollable sort of force of nature. And she's an interesting accomplice for that, because she's kind of... there's also a wildness in this kind of child, transforming...
Yeah, well, she's adventurous enough to get mixed up with Brando, the Brando character. But she's also very childlike and charming. And...
Yeah, this is a strange moment, this strange little beat in the scene where the woman doesn't give her the key. There's, we've had a run of films where characters have been dead, but they haven't known that they're dead, right? And I think we'll be doing others. And is there an aspect here? Is she in some sort of purgatory?
For Maria? No, I think she's
just physically.
She's almost coming out of the chrysalis, and she's going to become a butterfly. But there might be this spider waiting.
This is her transformation
to get her. Is she going to have the ideal life, or is she going to be sort of led astray by this carnivorous sort of thing?
Is this a woman's coming of age film, or is it a man's sort of psychic dissolution film?
I would say it's much more about the man's, in a sense, coming of it in the later stage.
A second coming of age, like a late coming of age.
Yes, a coming of late age. Only because it's more unusual and explored, whereas Maria Scheider's coming of age is pretty much what we've seen.
It's abrupt.
Again and again. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's not the statement it's not the thing that carries the film.
This is like a painting. Look at this shot.
Yeah. Now, one of the things about this film, it's quite uneven, and this is almost like... This could almost be just the style. There were all these sort of interesting edits and things going on earlier. Now we're into these long things where it's almost like a stage play. You can almost imagine this is...
Sure.
We're sitting out here in a small theatre watching these two people because the camera's hardly moving.
So one of the things that I was thinking about when I watched this was how would this work in 2012 or in 2013 now, actually. So I mean, if this scene would be taking place in Paris in 2013, what would be the same? What would be different? And is this how films date? I mean, is this what we mean when we say a film is dated? That it doesn't seem to obtain now to us? See, for me, if that's the case, then that's relevant because, you see, the film doesn't need to obtain outside its particular moment. It just needs to obtain truthfully in its moment, or maybe not even then. It just needs to make some sort of sense, otherwise it's difficult to care about it, right?
Yeah.
But the way, one of the things that did date the film for me was the sense that a young woman would kind of fall into this, but then again, I'm not a young woman, and I don't know what the parameters are for a young girl in Paris she's what is the backstory? She's come out of a relationship, or is it just that she's just left the family and is moving on with her life? Or do you remember the?
Oh, I think she's about to enter 2 relationships, in fact.
Right.
There's the film, and she's young enough to not really have a past to speak of.
Okay.
And I don't think there are any dramas in her life particularly. I think.
What about the filmmaker? There's that young filmmaker who knows her, and
well, that's right. That's kind of the normal romantic, age-appropriate relationship that she has the option of pursuing, while this is more alien, exciting, challenging.
He is a challenging man,
yet doomed.
Okay. Well, maybe the challenging guy is more interesting than the safe, guy. Maybe that's. I mean, how often do apparently rational women take on pretty challenging?
Well, he is Marlon Brando.
Yeah, he's Marlon Brando as well. I mean, doesn't she? She should have recognized him. Doesn't she? Go to the movies, like, what's wrong with him?
Yeah. And as guys pushing 50 go, he's quite, he's a pretty old man.
He's an old young man. He got old young. Oh, I like that look. That was great. She's so annoyed with it.
Well, this is probably the last movie where you'd say Marlon Brando was sexy.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, I don't know.
And he didn't make another one for 5 or 6 years after this.
I wonder if he was paid on this. He always used to ask for a lot of money. I wonder if he did this one cheap or.
Oh, I don't know.
In Apocalypse, he was paid just ludicrous amounts.
Yeah.
Superman. Did she actually use them?
Anyway, getting back to this, could this play now in 2012? I think these events. I would say these events could certainly occur, but as a piece of art, I think there is much that would now be frowned upon. There was much that was frowned upon back then for different reasons, which was the explicit sex, which was totally overblown in the minds of people who hadn't seen it beyond what it actually is, as far as the amount of time, the amount of the film that it takes up.
The critics at the time overreacted. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, well, it was promoted as, I mean, you would imagine from the trailers and so on that the whole film was these two on a mattress, just doing sexually transgressive things.
Well, that sounds really boring.
In truth, that boils down to about 5 minutes of this film, really.
Okay. Now, the film is old enough now for it not to be particularly high in public consciousness, I think. I mean, there are many young people who are not familiar with Brando.
I wouldn't say it was well remembered particularly. No.
So this is the sense. Wow, he really looks older, doesn't he? So this is the sense in which it's been overlooked to justify the.
Yeah, I think it certainly had no trouble getting noticed at the time, but I think it's not well remembered. Possibly because, again, people who haven't seen it imagine it probably to be something quite different from what it is. All they know is about the butter scene and the picture of Brando and Maria Schneider naked on the poster, and it just looks like a sort of legitimized soft porn movie, which it certainly isn't by any means.
Yeah, have you ever? I saw a documentary about Vittorio Storaro and his approach, and he has this very structured approach to color and to light, and colors mean things. They actually have a semantic significance to him, and he uses them.
You talking? Sorry, cinematographer or Bertolucci?
Cinematographer.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a very important note, isn't it? He tosses the hat. See, unfortunately now this looks to me a bit like an ad. The guy waltzes over, tosses her hat away, picks her up.
Well, this is another thing that wouldn't play terribly well now. I mean, all this sex is...
Isn't this rape?
I would call it semi-consensual.
Semi-consensual. Well, that means it's not
forced
rape,
upon her, but she's going along with it.
She's kissing him.
Which, in a way, is the worst thing that you can do, is say a woman will enjoy being sort of essentially attacked like that. Right. That's sort of the worst thing you can say, almost.
Right. But what if it's the case? Then
what if it's the case? Well, we're talking about culture. We're talking about art and artists saying things, and we're not really talking about what actually happens.
That's political correctness. That's not art. Art is something. Art is not the same as political correctness.
No,
sure.
No, but we would not judge these two people in reality the same way that we would.
Oh, I see.
As people in a movie,
right? So
conveying a theme.
So out of this window here, across the next building, like if you look to the right, if you look over my direction here, if we saw a couple doing this, I mean, we obviously would look, and but that's the real world. Whereas this is art, so it's meant to be. We're meant to be watching this. There's a reason for it. The filmmakers have decided. They have ordained.
And they're telling us something.
So what are they telling us? That he's Randy and she's...
well, are they telling us that this is okay? Not really.
Yeah. So the way in which it's occurring... In spite of... All right, let's assume that she wants this. She seems to be enjoying it. If she wants it, what right do we have to say that it's wrong for her to be in this situation? Does it all come down to her moment-by-moment decision to play along or not play along? Isn't it as simple as that? Or is there more to it?
Yeah.
What if she changes
her mind? It's all
about
protocol, really.
What if in 5 minutes' time she decides that...
Sorry?
What happens if in 5 minutes' time she decides, I've now retrospectively decided that I actually didn't consent? I mean, this is like date rape or something.
Oh, well, I don't know. I can't comment on that. That's one of those things that is unresolvable. That's something that can just happen. If she did that, would become what the movie's about, really.
Well, that's more of an American college thing in the 90s, I think.
Sorry?
That's more of an American college thing in the 1990s and noughties rather than something happening in the early 70s in Paris. I don't know. So this idea of these bodies, this sort of collision of bodies.
Yeah, this is almost getting like a dance piece now. They're kind of expressing their state by the distance between themselves and just gestures, and no one has to say anything.
Maybe this is how the species...
like they met and there was a bit too many sparks and they kind of rolled away a bit burnt.
Oh, okay. But maybe this is how the species evolved. Maybe from time immemorial, caveman and cave women have sort of bumped into each other and gone for it. And of course the question is now is that, back in the old days, this is now 71, so she has access to all sorts of intervention options now, but she can decide to have a child or not, or
well, at the moment she looks quite disturbed by the way it's ended.
And he screws up the advertisement, which means that he's laying some claim, I think.
Well, he's incredibly cocky. It's hard to tell. It almost looks like he's following her, but he isn't at this point. And I think they're going to meet again by chance. But he almost seems confident that she'll be back, in a way. Or maybe what was in his mind, and this is the progression of the film, was that was a one-off thing. And it's not the kind of thing that's going to happen again.
Right, so he just has...
And then he travels to the end where he wants to keep her.
Maybe he's really confident that, although she found the experience, is the camera, so it's getting meta, isn't it? So, she's really desperate to reattach to this other relationship in this moment.
I get a bit confused about how well these two knew each other, but I guess she went to meet him at the station and he turns out to be springing a filmmaking exercise on her.
I've seen this actor before. He's still working, this guy. I think he's in Irma Vep. We should do Irma Vep.
Right.
Whether or not he's in it.
I forget his name. Apparently he never met Brando. He was too scared of him. And he only worked
What's the point of being in a film with Brando?
Yeah, he worked on the film. Well, they never meet in the film. He only worked on the film on Saturdays, apparently, because that was the day Brando didn't work. This is some IMDb trivia.
That's great.
That's all I've got for you on that. But it's an interesting little anecdote. So this is Mr. Right.
It's reality TV, man.
Or is it? But at least he's the right age for a young woman to be getting mixed up with.
He's about the same height.
And yet, is he a bit of a nut and he just wants to put her in a film and he's,
It's
in
crazy
a sense, not taking her seriously.
What's with all these crazy, frantic men that want to situate her in different ways in their artwork or in their breakdown or in their... Oh my gosh, remember this? This is the... there was some...
Now, this is a very
suicide,
strange scene.
So
is this the blood of the dead wife?
His wife, right.
Of Brando's wife?
No, there's no murder.
Who has committed suicide?
Right. It's all suicide, yeah.
We don't mind giving you spoilers because we're assuming you've watched the film before you watch it with us.
There'd be no point.
So, yeah, this is a very strange scene, really.
So, right, so the story is that Brando is having a breakdown because his wife committed suicide.
Yeah.
And that random sex stuff is just random stuff.
Yeah, he's in a highly disturbed state. And that's kind of like taking a shot of heroin or something. It's just something to get out of himself and get out of this experience. And
so a distraction? He's using
probably a hint of starting again, or obviously this situation feels very corrupted to him, and maybe that felt like something a bit fresh.
So who's this woman again? What's her story?
Yeah, I'm not sure who she is.
This film sort of throws these characters at us. We have to say, well, how do they relate to things? And
I mean, does she just work there and she's just cleaning up? She doesn't look like someone who works for the police who'd be sort of...
And she seems to know something about the work situation.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this office or whatever it was. It's very novellic, I mean, you can do this in a novel. You can just introduce characters and have them go into conversations. And, as a reader, you make the decision to read on or not, depending upon how interesting it is. And you assume more trust that it will hook into the main narrative at some point. And, a lot of latitude. I mean, this is one of the things that's less... Well, that's probably the razor she used. That would have been...
Possibly.
That's probably
but did you notice what Brando does at the end of this altercation with the razor?
He was pulling that string or something.
Oh no, that's still to come. When he departs the room, he does something really quite strange that we hardly see.
We don't register it very well.
And he was just watching the neighbours, which is, I guess, just a bit of colour we're throwing in there.
Distraction.
Or maybe he used to be part of a couple.
That's a great
now he is no longer. Now,
she leaves the water running.
He's going to take that razor and
the strop.
Do something quite strange with it.
Oh, they don't need it anymore.
Dum dum dum. I've built up this moment. Come on, Marlon, do it. Yeah, like. Look at that.
He's holding it at her throat?
It's almost like he killed her, but he didn't.
He's just randomly...
But he's just sort of grabbed the razor and cut her, or pretended to.
He didn't cut her. He's pretending to cut her, I think.
But where'd she go? You can almost not see that, and there she is, sort of...
So he's sort of punishing her for leaving the water on? Is that what that was? What does it boil down to?
Well, that's the thing. It's not really clear what happened there. Did he actually cut her, or did he just threaten
he didn't cut her? He was playing, but you don't play about certain things,
no.
Really. It's just not...
Yeah.
Although, hang on, she's wearing a scarf. Did he cut a jumper? Look, there's a hole in the jumper, man.
Ah, okay.
Dude, what sort of madman are we dealing with here?
Yeah, well, he is a madman. He is...
That was a turtleneck with a big cut in the front.
I mean, he basically wanders around Paris sort of intimidating people.
Intimidating women.
He's not scared of anyone.
I know he's men, he'll drink with men and stuff.
He doesn't mind intimidating. He'll intimidate anyone.
Does he intimidate men in this film?
Yeah, he sort of beats someone up a little bit who comes around to his building with a prostitute later in the film.
Wow.
He sort of chases him down the street and slaps him around a bit.
Oh, there's only going to be one cat in this household. Look at this. She's not going to suffer. Oh.
No, this is quite good. She's could have come here and she tries to leave, but all this furniture of Brando's coming in keeps pushing her back into the room.
So the story is then.
And it's almost like she can't leave here. And
So Brenda's married. Who knows how happy the marriage was? The woman commits suicide, apparently. That's what the police decide. He's wandering around. He bumps into this chick. He wanders in this building.
Yeah.
And he decides to transplant his life into this apartment with this girl.
Yeah.
And just not. It's not about discussion, not about verbalization. It's all about action. It's just doing, just taking, making happen. No discussion. He doesn't want to talk anymore. He's had enough of talk, perhaps.
Well, in the end, he doesn't want talking, but he doesn't want to know anything. And this is quite important to the sort of plot or the theme or the resolution of the film, is that he does not want any facts about her. He doesn't want to know anything about the outside world, because his life outside this room is just a mess.
So he's just retreating from reality.
Yeah.
And she's a fluffy accompaniment, or a sort of a... Yeah. She's an accessory.
Yeah.
Like a little decorative kind of thing, an object.
Yeah.
Because does he care about who she is? Like
not
her
yet.
Soul or her mind? Or her...
Not yet.
He's something to...
I don't think he doesn't care about it. I just think he wants... Well, he likes the fact that she's got nothing to do with all the horrible things in his life at the moment.
But I mean, the thing is that you when I say care about her, I mean, you think for a moment that she's a possession, right? And he thinks of her as a possession. When I say care about her, I mean care about her to the extent that he owns her, and that tells her to do things, and that she fails to comply, or she might leave, or someone else might want her instead, or something.
Yeah.
Look at this great light here again. Hey, there's the Roman nose.
Yeah, no, he doesn't mind intimidating.
Oh, he's quite happy to intimidate people. And
being a bit scary.
You mean he became a very heavy man. I don't know how tall he was. But I'm sure he could be very intimidating, because he's a very intense guy, and he's Brando. He's sort of... Let's talk about Brando. I mean, he's sort of this mixture of the angelic and the demonic, and there's this nobility to the brow and eyes, and yet there's this disillusion and this self-hatred and stuff.
And also this quite patchy career, looking at some of the films that he's done.
Sure.
A few great films.
The Island of Dr. Moreau, one of the best he did.
Okay,
I haven't seen it. No, it's apparently a terrible film.
Obviously, Streetcar Named Desire is the official...
That's
officially
the film.
The remembered.
Method. Yeah.
Great brand. Oh, and The Wild One, I suppose.
Yeah, that would make sense. I mean, I think of Apocalypse Now, but that's my kind of...
Yeah.
The horror.
Yeah, he played a small but important part in Apocalypse Now.
Oh, he was cute. The whole film's about him.
Well, it's about the character, but it's not so much about his performance or what he does in the film.
Wow, I don't know.
But the Kurt's character is certainly the goal of the film.
He drives it all.
Yeah. But he's more of a mystery rather than that.
Yeah, mysteries
character.
Mysteries are very motivational.
Yeah.
But right. So the idea is that there's that great profile. So the idea is that we have to talk about, because then
this is interesting. We may have a leaf blower in the neighbourhood.
Oh, is that what it is? Oh gosh.
Or no, actually, I think it might be a scooter, and it's gone.
Hopefully, it's gone. So whose life is this? There's all this stuff here. This isn't all his... Oh, no, this is another apartment.
This is the mother of his dead wife. Yeah.
Very important relationship. So how does this scene play out? Private.
And obviously this is all very fresh, and they're all trying to work out...
She's come to... for this shot. Who would do this? This is fascinating. To zoom, to push in, and then have them... And to get them out of frame, and then to have her cross the frame.
I wonder if you got the whole frame there, actually. Yes, we
do.
Yeah,
it's the whole frame. Yeah. That's a painting, man. That's and then he lunges in for the hug. So he really, there's a real connection here. We don't get the impression, do we, that he murdered his wife? We get the impression of loss.
I get the impression, because he's so kind of getting into people's heads and mucking them around and basically bullying people, you can imagine this may have been quite a factor in their wife's suicide. Although that is never stated.
Well, we never see it.
We don't know that he was like this before she died.
Yeah.
He may have been a much nicer person before she died.
Is there any character that can provide us with a frame of reference and to say, you've changed or something like that? Is there anything like that?
No. Well, he does get angry at the wife when he talks to her body alone, and he talks to her lover. She was having an affair, and he has the conversation with her lover.
His wife is having an affair.
Mm.
Well, in that case, then that's, again, possible motive for murder.
And it's odd that they chat like friends as if it was all out in the open that she had a lover.
Maybe that's what happens in Paris to some degree.
He does actually say to her that he doesn't know why, to the dead wife, when he's talking to her alone, that he doesn't know why she did it. But that could indicate that it was actually something to do with him, and he doesn't want to know.
Did he have a lover at the time? Do we know? Did he also have a mistress? So she had a...
No, there's no sense of that. No.
Right. Okay. Well, that's another motive for murder.
Yeah.
Potentially. Do you think he killed it?
No.
Right. In spite of the fact that he slid open the...
No, I think there's... No, it wouldn't make sense, because there's this whole monologue he does when he's alone with her body.
Well, maybe he's convincing himself.
And talking to her, and there's no sense that he did it.
Maybe he's just convincing himself that he didn't do it. He's creating a false narrative for
well,
himself.
Maybe you're creating a false narrative.
Maybe I am, but the point is that psychologically there's nothing to make what I've said impossible.
Yeah. Oh, it's possible. But I tend to think if there's nothing in the film indicating it, then I tend to think, well, that's just me doing it.
I'm ambivalent. I think there's actually a possibility he might have done something to it.
Right. Well, we'll look at that again when they're alone, perhaps, or anywhere else.
Look at this constrained colour palette. There's oh gosh, it's just brown.
Yes, there's a lot of this brown, which was actually in one of those Bacon paintings. Which apparently he showed to the cinematographer and said, this is cool. I like this. Gave him that brown overcoat.
Yeah.
I think we've got more than a brown tinge here. I think everything in the room is actually brown.
There's a bit of cream. So this woman. So we can assume that she's somewhat like her daughter, perhaps. That there's some correlation. Usually, mothers and daughters have similarities in gesture or tone or voice.
Yeah. Well, I imagine she was her little girl, and she wants to imagine her as less, perhaps, experienced and corrupted than the husband knows that she was. And that's because they're obviously getting more conflicted the longer they're together here.
Is she going to blame him, do you think? I mean, is that inevitable?
No.
Oh, look, they've cleaned up the area, but now
I think she just wants to believe something about her, and he's not going to let her believe that. He's going to say, no, it wasn't like that. It's not the way you think it was. You didn't know her like I did, that sort of thing.
She doesn't follow him. She unpacks. So she's
maybe those are her things. I think she's going through the daughter's things.
So what's the explanation that he's going to give her? It's, I'm no longer living in the apartment. I'm moving out, but you can stay here. Is that basically?
Oh, I don't remember, actually.
That's the kind of thing that this film doesn't pursue. It just sort of leaves that stuff.
Well, I think he's just lost interest in everything he used to do, including running this hotel. I don't actually see him doing anything about running the place much.
So a very specific decision was made then not to give us access to his life before on the part of the filmmakers. We are not to know.
Yeah, very little. Yeah.
Where to
is known.
We can. This is very very tough.
Oh, this is the point of conflict. She did not. Keep God out of it, please. No. I mean, I'm having none of that.
And he just has no sympathy for position. I mean, he only cares about his own position.
Yeah.
He doesn't. That's a good point. I mean, the Catholic Church, until recently, I think, had a very. Might still have actually a specific.
Was that true? They won't actually give her absolution in a nice, merciful way if she committed suicide.
There was a time when suicide is like the worst thing you can do.
Yeah.
Not murder, suicide, because what you're doing is you're essentially you're throwing back in the face of God this gift of life.
Yeah, and you're cheating your way into heaven.
No, you're not going to heaven. You're trying to escape. The thing is that...
In which case you don't get in. Yeah.
Well, no. The idea is that there's an assurance that you will not be tempted or stressed beyond your capacity.
Mm.
Okay. Therefore, anything you experience must therefore be within your capacity to tolerate, right? So to suicide to escape is, considered or was considered by the Catholic Church at light.
This play of the doors here is really nice. It's almost like just a dance piece. Or
it's so strange, isn't it? But the idea is that and suicides were not allowed to be buried, I think, on consecrated ground. They were sort of rejected at every level by society. And have you known any? I mean, we won't go into detail, but I mean, have you known families affected by suicide? I mean, it's very, very disruptive, obviously.
Yeah, sure.
But whether or not there's a note, speaking of that, is there a note? I don't think we've had discussion of a note, or we haven't seen a note. I mean, that usually clinches it. That would reduce the possibility of a murder investigation if there was an identifiable note. That everyone agrees, yes, this is from the wife. Yes, she seems to.
There appears to be no controversy about the suicide.
No, that's true. So maybe he wasn't in town, or it was across town, or who knows. So here we have, it's a mattress base, not even a mattress, right?
Yes, the mattress is the center of the room,
and it's
like
just
a stage within a stage. And
they wander in, they strip, they get in, they get on with it. That's the.
I don't know what the mattress on the wall's about. Is that the old mattress? That wasn't good enough?
I think that's the mattress, but the base is what's in the center of the room.
Okay.
So this is almost the iconic poster.
Yeah, this is the embrace. That's the poster image.
So this is just consolation. This is just animal consolation. Like if you're a baby, he would want to be suckled or nursed or patted or something. And because he's an adult, he wants a sort of an uncomplicated fuck. It's pretty much, is that the read?
But no, they're getting into this whole, let's look at each other things. Right. There's becoming a little entranced with each other. No, it's not just getting off.
So, this is some sort of tantric kind of thing where it's.
They find each other interesting as their personalities. They're not just using each other's bodies. I think, even though they're playing very sexual games here.
So it's a little bit like experimentation, So. I mean, she's at the age to be doing experimentation. You would assume that he's...
Yeah, and he's leading her on a bit. Come over here and try this.
So is he a dirty old man? Is that what we're dealing with?
Well, no, I wouldn't have thought so. I mean, that's being ageist, really. I mean, what makes him a dirty old man? Just the fact that he's old.
Absolutely.
That he's older than her. And really,
he can't help that. He can be a dirty, handsome, wealthy young man. That's fine.
Yeah.
He's just a dirty old rich man. Well, in real life he was. And a tragic life. How many of his sons and daughters died?
Brando?
Yeah.
His son, I remember his son died. And he was a mess. Drugged up mess, I think.
Okay, so this descent, I was talking about how this is sort of a descent into an animal kind of state, and I think I have some evidence here.
Got some very obvious regression going on here.
Childlike and then animal-like, and then
we just cut to these ducks doing almost the same thing.
Oh, it's the recording, right?
And here we are back at
these geeks are so funny, aren't they?
Back at the filmmaking, which is some kind of meta-film sort of thing, I suppose. But I don't know. I'm not getting a lot from this whole scenario with the filmmaking, except it's obviously the young alternative lover that.
Yeah. I think these people are still interested.
That she has.
They're still interested in life.
Sorry.
They're still interested in life. They're still engaged in the world.
Yeah. Yes.
Beautiful line.
They're motivated to do fun stuff.
To do and be. Yeah. I mean, I get the. Well, here's my take. Right. I think that Brando's character is probably suicidal, but he's not following through. He just wants to escape, and he's just using, tried and true methods to do that. I mean, this what do they call it? anodyne sexuality, where it's... Well, no, it's probably more than anodyne. I mean, anodyne sexuality doesn't sort of connote so much communication between minds. And you could argue that we do see that here. But here we are judging these relationships. We're sitting here, we're judging her relationship with Brando and judging her relationship with this filmmaker. Do we have a right to judge relationships, first of all? I mean, as film goers, is it, I usually feel as though I'm being invited by the filmmakers to take a position. Is this a film, though, which says that, all of those sort of positions are false? Or
I think this is possibly made in a less judgmental age than we are making this commentary in.
Yeah, it's possible.
We live in a very, very judgmental, moralizing age, which isn't all bad. I mean, we're in a lot of ways we're sort of constructively critical of things that were previously, let run. Social equality, social equality sorts of issues are. I mean, people can get terribly tedious arguing about them, but they are actual issues, and
the changes do actually transform lives.
Yeah,
I mean, there are people who are living in ways that they would not before those changes.
So there are things that we would frown upon now that they may not have particularly been,
and vice versa,
spent time frowning upon back then when this was made,
and vice versa. That they would be aghast at things that we would. Personal intrusion with surveillance and lack of privacy in 2013.
Yeah,
what would Brando think of Twitter and Facebook? Can you imagine?
I don't. Yeah.
Can you imagine trying to have a conversation with Brando about what people do with their lives online?
Yeah. He doesn't strike you as a computer kind of guy, does he?
Well, he doesn't strike me as a particularly social guy at all.
No.
He strikes me as someone who's kind of this tortured, gifted force of nature. That's my take on Brando.
Yes, I actually don't have much of an idea of how Marlon spent his time between movies.
He ate.
Yes, and he probably was a pleasure seeker, you would imagine.
Yeah. In the words, but the thing is, when you sometimes you seek pleasure to run from other things, right? So he may not have been an Epicurean. He may have just been someone who assuaged pain with pleasurable pursuits. But I mean, ice cream. He was a big ice cream guy. Burt Reynolds put it this way. He said that the two greatest figures, I think it was, in American cinema, Orson Welles and Marlon Brando, spent their late career eating themselves out of the frame.
Yeah.
That's, I think, how he put it.
Well, it's an interesting choice of words. The greatest figures. There are certainly two of the largest figures.
Maybe that was part of the plan. I'm probably misremembering it, but I swear it.
Well, I got the sense that both of them decided to grow old disgracefully because there was no point. I think, as I say, this is probably the last movie where Brando tried to, or was expected to be, the attractive male lead. I think after this he started to, look, I'm just going to be this old dude. I might as well become a big scary monster and be respected in other ways.
Well, I think that in a sense maybe it'll turn. Maybe in the future it'll be actresses who grow old disgracefully, and actors will do what they can to keep themselves together. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, maybe someone like Lindsay Lohan could be prototypical. She's not old enough to do that yet, but she could be the one that forges this path.
That's probably her career. I don't think I've ever seen her in a film, so I've no idea.
She's a good actress, but in her real life, she's had all those visits to rehab and brushes with the law, and you can speculate that all this is actually just done for publicity purposes, but she hasn't done a whole lot of acting lately, so one might suspect not.
We'll get off the low end, and we'll get back to the film. So,
meanwhile,
this is one of these manufactured scenes where she's legitimately going into her past, what past she has, her childhood, essentially, and testifying to it before cameras. What is her motivation to do this, though? Why would she want to? Is she an exhibitionist? Does she just get out of it? Does she just enjoy telling her story to people, or Is there some condition, like has he said that, does she want to be an actress and a star or something, and this is the path?
She does rebel against this. In a way, she's just been swept up in it, like the thing with Brando. She's been swept up in two different things. Because she is just surprised by all this at the train station. It's just inflicted upon her that she's going to be in this guy's film. And
she just stepped in it.
And later she says, I don't want to be in this film anymore.
So she's just a dilly-dallying kind of...
Well, she's a young woman and men are chasing her and sort of trying to involve her in their lives, and, she can resist up to a point, but then she likes men, so what do you do? I don't know. She's finding her feet because she's young, I have
no idea.
And there's a lot of stuff coming at her.
You bet. Is she pregnant by the end of this film, do you think? I mean, what's the...
Oh, I don't think so.
How much time passes, do you think, in the story space of the film? I mean, like a month or a week? Or...
Less than, I'd say 3 weeks.
Okay. 3.5 weeks.
Yeah. It's a bit like 9.5 weeks. Yes. There were movies that kind of echoed this thing a bit.
Just being swept into a relationship. Just that as a topic.
That was... had shadows of... speaking of shadows, it's 50 Shades of Grey, isn't it? It's just a story about a caring yet abusive relationship. A loving yet abusive relationship.
I haven't read the thing, but my understanding is that it's basically playing up the dominant submission thing.
Yeah.
For a new generation, is my understanding.
Yeah.
I saw a girl reading that on the sidewalk on the way here, actually.
Right.
Yeah. So, all right. So, I mean, I don't think this film is basically a film about anodyne sexuality or kind of...
no.
I think sex is a sideshow.
Yeah.
I think there is some... I don't even think sex is the path to the goal. I think it's a sideshow, because what this really is about is some sort of existential thing.
Mm.
That,
definitely.
These characters are conscious,
yes,
and they have a past, and they have a place, and they have a texture to their lives, and they're in a place, they're in Paris, which is very textured in all sorts of ways. That's resonant, and I'm sure it feels, has all these feelings and smells and wonderful stuff associated with it, and they're just experiencing it.
Mm.
And there's this, what does it mean? This is sort of Sartrean kind of...
yeah. Well, I think the whole Brando character is
quintessentially...
Shall we say quintessentially existentialist, indeed. Quintessentialist. What is something? A wordplay there that didn't work.
Can we mention that your dad is in the business of this sort of thing? Is that something you want to bring to this? Or?
I've got no idea what you mean by that.
Well, he's a professional philosopher, right? So is that something you want? I mean, he would...
Well, it's just odd that, because this Brando in this really reminded me of my father at the time.
All right, okay.
And they're both quite old now, but when I first saw this probably 20 years ago, just physically he was quite a bit like my father. Right. Personality, not at all.
Right.
Except obviously being my dad, he could say something a bit intimidating from time to time.
Sure, yeah. Well, I mean, that's...
but sorry, I didn't really quite get the point that you were trying to make about him. He's a philosopher, you were saying.
Yeah, I was just saying that, because...
And my father is a philosopher.
We're now getting into a philosophical reading of the film.
I don't think he's a big philosopher. He's talking about his life here, and apparently this was actually... Brando's pretty much Brando's childhood that we're getting here, right. And Brando actually improvised a lot of this stuff. So famous anecdotes about Brando in this film and other films were that he had cue cards taped around the room
on people's faces,
and on Maria's body. Apparent legend says it on her boobs, and she refused to have cue cards for Brando on her ass. And they had to be kept out of shot all the time. Sure.
This is also the case for...
So I think he's winging this about his own childhood, according to IMDb trivia, anyway.
Oh, okay.
If we're to accept that.
No, ignore it.
Well, it's not really vetted, is it? Someone just types it in there and
I don't know.
Runs away laughing, perhaps.
I don't know. Maybe we should try doing that. We should just invent stuff. So this is very touching, I thought, when I saw this, because he was talking about he doesn't want to get into facts and history, but he's giving her... I don't know, maybe this is the core of... Is this the heart of the character? this childhood experience?
Well, it sounds like he didn't get much out of his dad, and that's, the mythology is if you had a bad parent, you may be a bad parent yourself.
Well, he doesn't have that problem. There's no child in the picture.
No.
Although if he keeps it up with Maria Schneider.
He just treats everyone like a child, like a bad, sort of scary dad, really. He's treating everyone.
He's the scary dad to everyone else?
He's the scary dad to everyone else. He certainly doesn't seem to look up to anybody.
Who does he respect? I mean, he uses the girl, but does he respect her? Or, is that even in the... He doesn't respect himself.
In a way, he does, yeah. I mean, he's not bored by her. He thinks he's the boss of her.
Well, middle-aged men like talking about their lives to young women. It's just part of the...
Yeah.
Young women, especially on buses, who get stuck against the wall.
Well, I think it's naturally, when you befriend a younger person, you feel like telling them stuff that they might not know about life,
to help them.
And what they're in for.
Okay.
But a lot of the time they don't appreciate that, and they just feel like they're being spoken down to, I suppose. Okay. It just depends on how they feel about each other.
Well, she seems to be fairly accepting. I mean, they've established that they have animal attraction, and now they seem to be filling in the other details. That's the sort of, impression. And that, well, here's the thing. I mean, is it necessarily the case that someone that you have animal attraction with and great sex with should be interesting to you as a person? I mean, in a weird way. I mean, it sounds strange to say that, but I mean, is there anything to necessitate? It's a bit like this, right? You can be good friends with someone and then discover that they're an artist or a musician or whatever it is. And you say, oh my God, show me something or play me something, whatever it is. And you might hate what they have. You might hate their art, right? But that has nothing to do with your relationship to them. They're a great friend or whatever it is. You trust them, the whole thing, right? But it just so happens that their artistic sensibility just doesn't, it doesn't do anything for you. That's the kind of thing I mean here. Is it not possible that many troubled relationships may be a result of a distinct animal attraction, which is not... Well, I'm already presupposing it. I've already answered my own question. I'm suggesting that troubled relationships are ones which have this imbalance between the vectors.
Yeah.
I mean, the other extreme is where you have two people who, get on very well in terms of their conversations and their likes and dislikes, but their sex isn't good. Or maybe they, just aren't comfortable together in some simple sense. Just sitting at a table or lying in bed or something. Not even as specific as sex. And I mean, sex is so microscopically examined, right?
Yeah.
As this entire domain. There's all the stuff outside of it which we won't pay as much attention to, but which is, kind of important. I mean, class comes in this, right? When you have a situation where you have, a couple, and they're from two distinct kind of classes, and one of them finds the other just embarrassing. It can be either way. You can have someone, from a working class situation who's embarrassed by the fact that their partner is highfalutin or, has a funny accent, or vice versa. But that's interesting, right?
Sure.
Especially in terms of character study films.
Yeah.
I mean, in real life, I'm talking about real life now, but if we jump into the world of art, that's an interesting dynamic for storytelling. But in a sense, it's just assembly. I mean, it's like you as a filmmaker can say, well, I'm going to assemble this series of characters with these traits, and there'll be this dynamic between them which will sort of naturally follow through, and an audience will watch and be satisfied. Is that it? Is that all you got to do? Is that enough? Is that enough? I mean, that seems to be enough to make a perfectly serviceable, perfectly enjoyable film.
Oh, well, is that a story? No, it's not really a story. I mean, there has to be some theme, some resolution, some idea, some conclusion that you draw from the completion of events.
So that's why the suicide is in this film, perhaps.
Right.
I mean, the suicide is the driver.
Yeah.
If this was just if he was just cheating on his wife. So his wife is alive, right?
Yeah.
He didn't commit suicide, and the wife is a lover, and he's picked up a lover. This is usually how these stories go, right? You don't kill off one of the characters and traumatize the other. That's interesting.
Right.
That's an interesting variation, right?
Sure.
because I mean it exposes that suicide would open up Brando's character and expose him to himself in different ways. Like he would be confronted by facts about the world, his prior relationship,
Right.
I guess.
Okay.
What do you think?
But I don't know. What's your point being?
Well, I'm trying to think about the.
Is there a conclusion?
The filmmakers' approach, the way they're approaching this,
right?
Why they're doing what they're doing, and
yeah.
I mean, is there an do they have an intuition that's guiding them? Is this an exploitation film? Is this a sex exploitation film reflecting the change in laws in America in the early 70s regarding censorship? Right? Is it that, or is it some sort of study of the soul?
Oh, well, it has to be a study of the soul, or it doesn't hold together. I think the whole sex thing, the style of it, the what you experience along the way is something else that it needs. I mean, the story has the experience of the adventure, I guess, but it also has to amount to something at the end. We have to come away with something that we're led to believe or invited to think about.
Isn't that just bookending? I mean, if you have a story...
No, I think if you don't have that, you wonder, why the hell was I told all this stuff?
Right.
We expect conclusions.
But how many films have you seen where the filmmakers have set up their character dynamics, as I was describing before, and they essentially shoehorn in or on a dramatic beginning and ending, using some sort of visual cue, usually an object or a moment, and assume that that's tied up everything, and that now they have a finished product.
But are they successful? Are
Very
they
often.
good films?
Very, very often. I mean,
I mean, are they good films, or are they just?
I think Inception was like it. I think Inception was a film that's far too clever for itself, and the whole thing with the top was, was a shark jump, a shark jumping moment at the end of that film.
Right.
And that's a recent film. I think there's a bunch of them. And the thing is, the audiences find them quite satisfying. What I want to get into then is the way in which how this film satisfies beyond those sorts of parameters,
Right. I don't know if beyond those, I think it has those. I think it meanders a lot.
It does,
in getting there. Basically, I think the middle of this film, it kind of isn't even particularly consistent, and it's very slow moving. I think the third act of this film is great, and it's the story comes to a meaningful conclusion. It's got a lot to say. It's got a fantastic sort of thematic ending to the relationship, which is ironic and recalls the end recalls the beginning, and we see that we've been on a journey.
Okay, so this is not a Cassavetes film. So I mean, if I sort of nutshell Cassavetes and say that Cassavetes is showing us kind of believable people in difficult situations, and we feel for them in a way in which we would feel for ourselves or our friends, as if we were in that situation, in a very sort of direct way. The lack of artifice invites us to just be very straight with our relationship with the film. Right. I mean, this isn't that, though, right? I mean, this is art. I mean, not that Cassavetes is not art, but this is self-conscious art in the sense of we're going to frame this in a certain way, we're going to bring a certain artistic sensibility. And without that, we would be unhappy as filmmakers. We would feel we haven't done what we had to do. If we just told the story, we need to tell it in a way. There's a rhetorical angle. It's not just the content. It's just the facts. I mean, when I was laying out my little diorama of character, she's rolling around again, of character dynamics, assembly of characters with certain traits to produce dynamics in the story. I could see you recoiling, right?
Right.
Because that was almost like a sort of a formulaic, kind of approach to storytelling. I think it's just an everyday part of storytelling. I think whether or not storytellers know this, they subconsciously or consciously do it's like a bricolage of character traits that they spread amongst their cast.
Sure. Yeah.
Look at this. Now he's having this breakdown.
Getting back to the film, we've sort of meandered a bit because this is quite a long film, and
Why is he crying?
These scenes are sort of impressionistic, and we have just watched Marlon cry.
Yeah, no, it was
all about his dead wife and his tragic life.
Yeah, what was it about the lampshade? The lampshade cover, I think it was. That was it like the smell of it or something?
Well, that's where it sort of becomes like this improvised sort of performance art thing at times, where they just sort of wander around.
It's just a piece of business. He's just needed a prop to grab.
He'll grab some, yeah.
Okay. So he sort of meanders between these households, isn't he? He's with Maria, then he's with this is the mother, I think, again.
This is the mother of his wife, yeah.
I don't know, man. The whole this for me could be another one of those post-mortal. I'm going to call them post-mortal films, where people don't know they're dead. They're sort of floating around.
Yeah.
There's these patterns that have been established in their lives, and they're just sort of going through the motions. And there's this weird, dreamy sense of it not mattering somehow, that we know that this is sort of theatricalized, or it's not real. This scene for me feels like that for some reason. I don't know if it's the change in color. So we're getting blues and greens. He is crazy.
Yeah, he just bit her. I mean, he's tormenting her, really.
Why does he enjoy? He just wants to spread it around. Is that it, or he's just unable to?
I think he's a bit of a sadist, really.
Sadistic traits. Right. This is very, very, very threatening.
I mean, he's really just terrorizing this poor, distraught woman whose daughter's just died.
It's a bit much. But I mean, the thing is that from some Zen angle, can we say that he is actually giving her something helpful? I mean,
oh yeah, he's trying to shove what he imagines the truth to be in people's faces. I guess he's not just tormenting them with lies; he's sort of tormenting them with truth. So in some ways that's admirable, I guess.
Goodness. Wow, this is pretty tough. So what he assumes he's doing is he's confronting her with some painful truths about the world.
Yeah, and this hotel that they all ran together, I think the mother seems to have been involved in that from what she was just saying. And these are the kind of beasts we actually keep in here. It's more of a zoo than a hotel, I think is what he's telling her. And he's telling them in the process.
Okay, so the world is not perfect. Boo-hoo. Why should I care? Why should I care about Brando's character? He's sure he's tortured and he's been through something tough, but he's a sort of semi-rapist and he terrorizes women, and he might be charismatic in some sense, but why should I care?
Well, yeah, I think he's hard to like. He's not easy to like, but he's not impossible to like if you can forgive the fact that it's sort of just a movie and the people he's terrorizing. It's more about he's terrorizing them to a tolerable degree for a work of fiction, I think. Well, getting back to this existentialist question about Marlon, I mean, I think this is very much about men getting old. Okay. He's kind of at the peak of his powers, and that's why everyone's scared of him and he's not scared of everyone. But it also means it's all kind of downhill from here in a way.
Oh, gosh, the razor.
He's no longer growing. He's going to start aging, I guess, which is kind of accentuated by the fact that he's just losing control of his life for other reasons.
So some men, I think, are meant to be young men, and others are meant to be old men. I think Brando is meant to. He's meant to be a young man. If he's not a young man, then it's just not working. Yeah.
Well, he's kind of like this rogue silverback.
Right.
Now. Okay. He's like this gorilla that's kind of too big for anyone to live with. He'll try and sort of settle down with him. He'll just sort of break everything.
That's interesting. So he doesn't fit his society.
Yeah, I think he's very much lost his place in the world. Not that he's downtrodden by it. He's just too. He's gone a bit too wild for it. People want to put him in a cage or something.
So the filmmaker is saying then that in ages past, this sort of man had a purpose, but in modern society, he no longer has a purpose.
Possibly. As a, he's not a father. I mean, if you consider that he's not a father, he's not giving up his life to nurture a next generation. He's pretty much got to live his life for himself, and he's kind of now in a situation where he's really got nothing except he's just found this affair to get lost in.
Which I don't think he takes that seriously. I mean, he's very cavalier about it.
Well,
if she were to walk out and never come back.
Well, that's the theme of the film, which is that goes from someone who just wants this to mean nothing to
attachment.
Someone who wants to make it something. He wants to tell his name.
This is very distressing.
And by the time he's done that, she's turned around and wants to get out. She wants to be like he was at the beginning. So it's all about bad timing, really, or their journeys are going in opposite directions. He's getting more and more interested, and she's getting less and less interested.
Or a madman's razor. Yeah. And she owns it. She faces him directly. So, she actually brings up the slave angle. I mean, he's been treating her a bit like a slave. Yeah. For her position.
Well, this is the early 70s, so feminism was, a hot topic.
Yeah.
Not to say that it's not now, but in a different way. It was new and sort of really ripening. And
people were militant and motivated.
Yeah. I mean, you almost had to deal with it.
It's taken for granted now.
Yeah.
And young women are the ones who are kind of now resisting aspects of it. I mean, 50 Shades of Grey is a deeply anti-feminist book that is incredibly popular with women.
Yeah.
So,
yes. Well, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? There's contradictions, the personal and the political and the fantastical and the practical.
From a Freud perspective, they're not contradictions. She's actually funny. Did she do much comedy?
No. She's very sweet and quirky and quite likeable.
She's funny. No, she's...
The only thing I don't like about her is her wardrobe.
In the whole film?
Well, she's got that terrible boater hat and the fur coat, isn't it?
Are we going to have a pubic hair discussion at some point? Because every film we have a pubic hair discussion, I think, pretty much.
Oh, well, hers is just natural, and I don't mind.
Unkempt. These days, my gosh, if you're a young...
It's a bit like the hair on her head. It's just wild and curly and...
If you're a young person, for some reason, listening to us and watching this, by young I mean, less than 30?
Right. Yeah.
25. This must be horrifying. Having a hair on your body beneath your eyebrows is frowned upon in some circles.
Yes. Well, I heard conversation to that effect.
I think we had that conversation.
Yeah.
It's probably another class.
I'm not really going to get into my preferences in that area.
No, I'm not asking you to. My gosh, I don't want to know.
No, I didn't think you did. I'm just saying it's irrelevant. We'll probably leave.
Well, no, what I'm saying is I think that scene will be shocking not for the nudity, but for the bush, is what I'm saying.
Right, yeah.
For young people. So he's expecting to see her. That beautiful shot. Look at this great station with this great old train that looks like it was dug out of a museum, but who knows? Maybe they were running in 71. And
well, isn't quite nice staging here as they find themselves on opposite platforms.
Wow. So, what's the story? What are you doing here?
And there's a lot of blocking or positioning of the characters in space in this film.
They have this very angry relationship, don't they, these two? She's out. So you don't like the clothing she's wearing?
Oh, no, she looks all right now. No, she was wearing this sort of straw boater hat and a fur coat with a big, huge collar earlier in the film, which I just didn't like. She looks good now. She looks good now. I take it all back.
Women in the 70s wore crazy stuff and no bras. Not just the politicized ones either. It's bras left. A lot of side boob, unintentional and intentional side boob in the 70s. That was my memory of the 70s.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not complaining.
Okay. But you were pretty young in the 70s, weren't you?
Yeah. Dude.
You were born in the 70s.
Yeah, you don't need to be old to appreciate side boob, man. You just need to be able to...
Yeah.
Man, in fact, boob is something that you understand from the moment you're out.
Indeed.
Dude, it's no problem at all. I don't think men get past them, frankly.
No, I think you go from putting them in your mouth to just something to look at that you're not quite supposed to. There's almost no gap. I mean,
you just told me everything I need to know.
They go from the maternal to the sexual probably about age 3 or 4.
3 or 4, come on.
Yeah. You disagreeing?
I'm disagreeing, yeah.
Okay.
But let's not talk about that. Let's talk about this fascinating scene. So we have this... what I wanted to get into was bleed through. So are there ways in which her relationship with one man bleeds into the relationship with the other man. I mean, I'd suggest that just
Okay,
happens.
well, it's interesting you just mentioned two men, because I wasn't sure who you were talking about, but now this is the scene where he talks to the lover as though they are friends.
Yeah, he's an interesting character, too. He's sort of like, there's a poise and nobility to this other guy. You can see why a woman, would be interested in him. I mean, maybe he'd be a relief after Brando. And the thing is that if Brando's troubled and he knows that, can he blame his wife? And that's the aspect, right?
Yeah.
Maybe he respects the fact that she had a
Yes, if we studied this conversation closely, you might find clues, but we're just going to talk over it.
Yeah. Dude.
And I didn't get it the first time.
Well,
there might be something in there. You could better understand what happened.
Well, we have Henry Moore on the wall.
We've got Camus.
Is that the
that's
the guy
the portrait there,
the profile?
Who was a existentialist. The profile picture, yes, a French existentialist, of course.
Yeah. I think so. He was a novelist as well. I think.
Rodin. Well, that's just fairly run-of-the-mill kind of art. You can't draw too much thematically from that.
Identical bathrooms. How weird. So he's also living in the same building.
Well, this is the thing. It's all happened in a very small space. He's probably just the guy upstairs who. She's the first guy she found to run away to get away from Marlon, perhaps.
I don't trust Marlon in this scene. He's smiling and he's selling himself.
Oh, yeah, he's tormenting this guy, but incredibly subtly.
Is that what he's doing? He's getting close to him to hurt him. So he's like a psychic vampire, is what you're saying, I think.
But this guy's not scared of him. They've obviously spent a lot of time together before.
They knew each other before the affair.
Yeah. He said they're going to have to share a drink, in fact.
Who wouldn't share a drink with Marlon? Look, if Marlon dropped dead...
They even get on matching robes in a minute, that's right. Oh, they have matching robes now. Yeah, there you go.
The hotel robes.
There's a lot of intimacy here, which I don't really understand, I've got to say.
Well, it's mirroring. This mirror image thing. We got into that with Kubrick.
Yeah. Well, he was just the other Marlon, I guess. He was a slightly less troubling Marlon for the wife to go and hang with upstairs.
Maybe that's how people have affairs sometimes. They don't choose someone who's opposed.
Different. They choose someone similar.
Yeah, but it's like a slight variation on the model.
Yeah.
Men do this when they replace wives, I've found. They get rid of an aging wife when they upgrade to the newer model. It's the same basic type, right? Coloration and height and body type and so on, but it's younger. Very distressing for women.
And if you think about the things we've been speculating that might have driven her away and ultimately to suicide, which is Marlon's volatile and punishing kind of personality.
Yeah,
you can see that this other guy does not have those qualities. He's very easygoing. He's a bit boring, but he's no trouble.
Well, maybe she wants the dynamism, but sometimes she wants a break, and so that's when she uses this.
Although there's this interesting little anecdote about how she clawed the wallpaper.
Yeah, it sounds like Hitler.
That certainly thickens the plot a little bit.
Well, she's self-destructive.
Yeah.
So she's down with
damaged
goods.
Look, here's just an alternative theory. She actually drove Marlon mad.
Oh, I like
That's why he's a mess.
She drove him mad, then committed suicide to get out of the situation. Now he's left with the bag, and he's, falling into her habits and driving everyone else crazy.
Well, he's a broken man.
Oh dear.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we don't know.
Okay.
But you could look at it that way.
Well, you could, because there is an innocence to Marlon. There's a childlike quality, isn't there? I mean, there's this constant sense of him being sort of a bewildered child in spite of things.
Yeah, you don't get the sense that he calculates things and works them out. He just barges in and does what seems right to him, I think.
A little bit of herpes going on there. Oh. He must have been a good man.
Yeah.
This could be really post-mortem. Maybe they're both dead, man.
You're sort of paying him a contemptuous compliment, I think, there.
Yes.
A good man is a boring kind of thing that I don't even want to be, if it means I'm like you or something.
It's an innocuous conversation. Or is it innocuous conversation? He's comparing himself.
Well, this guy's trying to stay in shape, and Marlon's sort of going out like a meteor, I think. He's going to go out in a ball of flame. That's why he doesn't respect this guy trying to hang on to his charm.
Making an effort. Yeah, look at that condescending look he gave him as he stood up.
Well, he will end this conversation and ask him I don't know if you remember what I don't know what she ever saw in it. So he's actually quite contemptuous of it. Yeah. But it doesn't come out till the very end of his conversation.
Yeah, he's leading him on, isn't he? You don't think Rose killed herself?
You don't think Rose killed herself? Yes. Is there an answer? Yeah, they don't know. We don't know.
We don't know anything. I don't think this film lets us know whether it was suicide or a murder.
It probably wouldn't help. It's better that we wonder or just deal with the fact that this guy's tortured by not knowing amongst a great many other things.
He's just disgusted. He's fooled the dude into... He's fooled Marcello into...
making a fool of himself.
And now...
He's almost got him behaving like a monkey and said, yep, you're just a monkey. See you later.
Still, you have to respect Marcello for being the...
He's cool. I mean, he was unflapped by...
He likes Camus, he likes...
But maybe those are sort of pedestrian things for a Frenchman to like in the 70s. I don't know.
So. Yeah.
They're just moderately sophisticated.
Not great. Yeah, maybe he's bourgeois.
Yeah.
Petit bourgeois. What the hell is under that sheet? Do you remember?
I don't remember. It is torn off at one stage. It means something or other.
It's pretty big.
Or is he in there?
I think so.
Is Marlon hiding him? Oh no, there he is. He likes the floor. It's sort of like he camps out. He won't sit at a chair. He likes camping out.
Go do this, do that.
Preserving something about the outlaw nature of this situation. He's not sitting in a chair.
And that's how you throw a stick of butter at a guy. Of course he's damn sure she's going to come back.
Look how cocky he is.
Yeah. She's transfixed. She couldn't leave if she wanted to. He's eating cheese with butter.
She's just trying to take him down a couple of notches so that she can feel better about having sex with him again, I think.
Well, that's interesting. Have you got a piece down there or something?
I forget what's in there. They found a little hole in the floor, and I forget what's in there.
It's informational.
She likes the mystery.
Oh, he looks older than her in this shot, doesn't he?
Yeah.
It's that hard light. Yeah, that feels wrong. I mean, he looks too old to be playing with her, really.
Yeah, but then, a century before, these two would have been married at that age.
Sure.
Married at those ages.
She could be 12.
But then, again, that's exactly what feminism is rebelling against, that whole tradition.
One of the things.
Or part of it. Yeah, one of the things. Now, here is the moment coming up that the film is most famous for, and unjustifiably, I think, although it is a moment, the famous butter up the anus of Maria Schneider scene. Now, apparently she was not expecting this, and she really found it quite upsetting.
Yeah. But, I mean, the filmmakers didn't...
Well, she went along with it, but she apparently... The story now is that she's really crying.
Sure. This is
not
illegal.
That she could have said no, stop, but
my understanding is
it was all
illegal.
a bit much.
If you're going to do this for an actress, first of all, she's got to sign off on it all.
Yeah.
She has to be old enough, and it's a porn film.
Well, it sprung on it too. I mean, if she'd been told it was going to happen, she might have gone. Yeah.
You're talking about the
actress.
actress.
She either may have felt better about. I'm talking about the actress.
Well, I'm really
No, the actress was not.
Okay.
This is not. She did not know this was going to happen.
Well, he's not actually having sex with it, but he's sticking butter.
She didn't know about the butter. Apparently, the butter and that.
Well, I mean, how can a filmmaker hold his head up after doing that?
I don't know. There might be more to the story than we're getting from the trivia pages of the internet.
Do you think? I mean, was that a story that was invented? Look at this. No, she's really crying. So, what drives a young woman then, an actress, to put herself in this situation? Is it the fee? Is it the fame? Is it the being part of something?
Who wouldn't have done? I mean,
Brando.
Who wouldn't have taken this?
Allowed Brando to shove butter up your ass?
Well, that probably wouldn't be how the gig was pitched.
I'm sure it was.
Do you want to make a movie with Marlon Brando, 20-year-old French actress?
Try it at your next casting, man. See what people say. Yeah, this is distressing stuff.
So he's degrading her here.
Yeah.
He's saying disgusting things as well as Anal penetration, preceded by food insertion.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why Brando wanted to make this film for sure. It's got everything. The only thing missing from the scene is ice cream.
Yeah. Well, no. Apparently, interestingly, more trivia. Brando also felt a bit raped by this film by Bertolucci.
Well, I really feel sorry for
him.
So
I think
Bertolucci's
probably
the bad guy.
just because he came out of it looking bad.
Sure.
Maybe he didn't intend to be quite the kind of monster that he wound up looking like.
That's the magic of film.
He also said he never quite totally understood what Bertolucci had in mind, even though he, on the other hand, supposedly improvised a lot of the dialogue here. Or wrote it himself.
Oh. Well, look, she's not left. She's still hanging around, so this is just how it's going to be.
No, it's a power play. She's not...
Does she have
sick
any
of
power?
him. She's trying to...
She has no power.
Well, she will have. I mean, there's something mythological here about the powerful male, tragically falling because of his weakness for the otherwise less powerful woman.
You see that move? That was really cool.
Yeah, he did a great gymnastic move there where he rolled. Yeah, I thought that was cool.
That needs some strength.
Yeah,
he's
in good shape, Marlon. Still. He's not exactly light, but he's in good.
No, he's a strong guy.
Yeah.
Apparently, I've heard there are some very strong actors. Apparently, Sir Anthony Hopkins. Apparently, he's represented himself as being very strong, or was.
Right.
I mean, he's a compact man. That barrel-like body.
Yeah.
And that's a good frame from which to deliver a punch or to wrestle. Okay, so she's getting the music. We have this cut. Where are we now? Are we in the past or the future? Or?
We're back to the young filmmaker, the alternative partner.
So there's a sense in which her relationship to the young man is false and sort of it's a fiction.
Yeah, well, he's making a fiction with her in it, really, isn't he? They're not doing anything on it without this film
cameras going on. Yeah, he's like a drama queen. He wants. There's no sense in which he would speak to her meaningfully if there weren't cameras. But then again, we had that love scene at the station. There were no cameras there. Right. I just contradicted myself.
Yeah. But you do get a sense that you never know whether he means what he says because it's all being made into a movie.
Well, isn't this Bertolucci in some way? Isn't Bertolucci, this is his surrogate in the film? This guy who's pimping himself or his life or his personal...
I think they both are.
Both, you mean?
Well, he would have been roughly contemporary of Brando's. And, his stage of life would be Brando's stage of life, or the Brando character's stage of life. Yeah.
I think Bertolucci was younger.
Okay.
She's so young. My God, she looks like she's about 12 here. This is distressing stuff. I mean, if she didn't have much of a bust, she has no hips. If she didn't have that bust, this would look like some sort of child rape sort of film.
Yeah, she's very impish. Maybe impish is the wrong word. It's like a little devil, but
yeah, impish. Oh, look at that! The life preserver sank.
The life preserver sank. Oh, where are we? This is
Who's this lady?
Mother.
Oh, right.
And she does have a normal home, so
if her mother only knew what she was getting up to.
Yes.
Well, honestly, to be frank, I don't think that this. I mean, her experience is somewhat anomalous, but I don't think it's that anomalous for a lot of young women. I mean, typically they go with guys at their own age, but who knows what goes on in. I have a theory, by the way. In Australia, the tertiary education was very inexpensive until I think the late 80s.
Yeah,
where they introduced,
it was free.
It was kind of free. Yeah. You have to buy books and things, but then it became moderately expensive. Not as expensive as the American universities, but you'd have to save, and either you pay it up front or you go into debt. That's what it meant.
Yeah, and
I just can't help wondering whether or not the increase in lap dancey kind of in Surrey Hills and around Sydney, that piece of legislation I'm sure, I have no evidence for this, right, but I'm sure it must have increased the number of young women working, in some echelon of the sex trade.
Right.
Just because, in terms of the money, for the amount of time expended,
yeah,
and in terms of study commitments and needing to actually go to class and have time to prepare for exams and so on, I don't know how, it could be beat unless you have access to, I don't know, some...
Well, you could also get a living allowance to be a student as well.
Back in the day, or
well,
after?
possibly you still can, but you would have to pay it all back.
You go into debt to do it. Anyway, so what I'm just musing on the idea that maybe there are many young women here in Australia who, at this kind of important part of their life, where they move from the child to the woman, kind of accept that there is this angle that. I mean, of course, this character is not a whore. I mean, she plays with the idea of it in that makeup scene with the mirror, but she's exploring. I mean, I think she's an innocent, and she's exploring what she can and can't do.
Oh, sure.
She pushes back this boundary to see where it breaks, and then that one, and she just wants to engage. But the thing is, isn't this her right? Or her duty? I mean, maybe it's the duty of a young person to explore and experiment and take risks. And, I mean, maybe big risks. That sounds weirder to be saying that in 2013 than it might have in 1971.
Well, I think historically and biologically, I mean, historically, young people would go and fight our wars for us.
They'd be sent to war.
Not through their own choice.
They don't start wars.
Old men. But also, young people are generally more fearless than older people.
Clueless is what you mean.
Well, no, I think it's actually, I think they've studied this as a biological phenomenon. Their fear mechanisms are less active than...
It's when we're older. It's part of the Darwin Awards. It's to, to enable a bit of self-culling, I expect. But then again, maybe you lose very important traits when those young people... There's beautiful colours. Look at the beautiful colours in the scene. We finally have some colour. I mean, bright colours. There are twins. There's two.
Who's reached us through the magic of DVD. Possibly not as wonderful as they might have looked
on screen.
The cinema.
It would have looked great. What are you talking about?
Better than this is what I'm saying. Yeah, we're probably not seeing it at its best watching this DVD.
Oh gosh, he's really getting wrapped up in it now, isn't he? So is he exalting in her beauty for its sake, or is it because it means that he now has a path to a film or a career? Is this is this a pimp's self-congratulation?
Oh, you think he's a pimp?
Well, I mean, when you use beautiful people in an image, are you not selling them in some way? I mean, are they part of them?
Yeah.
That's the sense, But I mean, he's very happy.
Yeah. Well, you could say he's a romantic, but his romance is with fabricated things that he's fabricating himself by making these films about his romantic notions and the romantic notions of being a filmmaker.
Are they false notions? Or are they...
Well, they're just romantic.
So they don't obtain
their ideals rather than something else, I guess.
Forgive him for what? Oh, I see. Forgive him. Sorry, forgive. She's asking him for forgiveness that she's returned. I'm sorry that I can't leave. Forgive me.
Yeah.
You're my drug, is what she's saying. Or is she?
Well, she does remain quite fond of him until the very end, when he becomes dangerous. Right. Even though she's moving away from him with her life choices. I mean, I assume she actually is getting married, or then I thought they were getting married. Then that bloody film crew is there again, which makes you doubt everything that's happening.
Yeah. Well, that's the meta angle, isn't it? I mean, film cameras are. I mean, many people say this. The cameras are, as intrusive as guns. When you put a camera in a scene, it's like having a gun in a scene. It changes everything. So, There's an artifact at the top of the screen. Is that like a piece of dust? Surely they would eliminate that.
Yes, it's moving with the camera. There's a bit of dust in there.
It just must be on the elements. They could have got rid of that in post, I guess. So this is her honeymoon. Oh, what's happened?
Oh, she hasn't got married yet.
Yeah, but it's her pre-honeymoon. A dead rat? Why would a dead rat be in the bed?
It's almost like he can't help tormenting people at this point.
That's true.
He's got the girl back.
He's like a little boy. He's like a 9-year-old.
He's showing her a rat and talking about eating it. Yeah. What is the goal here? He just can't help poking at her or something.
He's messing with her. Oh dear. See, for him, it'd probably be a turn on,
She wants to leave.
Yeah,
but can't yet.
Yeah, she's probably attracted to and disgusted with his cavalier attitude. It's the push-pull. Wow, that looks like... Is she pregnant? That looks like she's... It almost looks like she's sensing a change.
The rain is quite... The light using
nice.
the rain is quite nice here.
Yeah, well, that's Storaro. What a beautiful dress.
Quo Vadis, what does that mean?
I think it means where are you going, or I think it means where are you going.
Oh, okay. Right.
It was a TV show and a series.
It was a movie, wasn't it?
I think it was.
Oh, okay. Where are you going? It's a funny name for something.
Oh, he won't have that.
So she's sort of trying to tell him it might be sort of coming to an end, and he is starting to resist that.
He likes his little fuck buddy. In the capacity of fuck buddy. I don't know if he likes it much beyond that. But, he's transferring the... Look at the shadow. That's great. Yeah.
And here we're back into this semi-consensual...
It's horseplay.
Sex thing, and now she seems content. I don't know, I think she pushes and tries to get out, and when she realises she's not going to get out just yet, she can still enjoy it, I suppose.
She's in love and not with him.
But she's still trying to tell him,
here we go.
This is no good.
You're old and fat. Yeah, she's been tough on him.
Telling him he's old, he's grey.
Oh.
And he's saying, well, you're going to be old and grey too, so what are you trying to say? You just don't know it yet. Which I guess is... that is part of the dynamic of the young and old. The old know what it's like to be young, and they know that youth ends, and they think the young don't know that yet, and they don't know what it's like to be old.
Well, you just have to be
sick.
sick.
How close it can be.
If you've been sick, then you have some idea. If you can't move and everything's painful.
Do you know that when you're sick and young?
You've never been sick?
Yeah, but I don't think this is what being old's like.
It's
being
a
old.
start.
Yeah,
not being able to move and feeling pain.
Being old isn't just being physically less comfortable. It's your position in society. It's how other people treat you.
Sure, that's true.
How long you've got. It's how much you know. It's how much freedom you have. How much you can still dream about what you might become, rather than accept what you have become. That sort of, it's very different.
So in a lot of ways, he's become a sort of a mentor. I mean, as he's bathing her, this doesn't seem so much sexual. It's more there is some sort of mentor angle to this, and I think that'd be hard to pull off these days. To sell that to an audience. And the phraseology I use, sell it to an audience. That tells us something about our age as well.
Yeah. Who else could we have cast in this?
Oh, it's an interesting question. Well, you would just go with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Really?
Yeah.
God, I never would have thought of him.
Yeah.
Why do you think that?
He's the new Brando, isn't he?
Well, he has managed to mature into a tough guy. I think he's a reasonable tough guy, Leonardo.
You need to have him tired though.
Actually, I think
he's
that
very
would
wired, so
work.
he needs to be more tired. As for the girl, I suppose you'd go with I don't know, some.
Well, the girl's
fragile
easier.
little-
I think she's more archetypal. This is a very difficult role to pull off, I think, for a guy. You can think of other people like, I don't know. I mean, Mickey Rourke, he could do the monster angle, but he couldn't do the likeable side of it. He'd just be too monstrous.
Right.
I thought maybe Terence Stamp. Not now, but when he was that kind of age.
Terence is it's interesting actually
Because he was,
Interesting choice.
as good looking perhaps, and aged reasonably well, and could be the villain.
You're that man. She's turned it around on his head. Sorry, I interrupted.
Oh, I don't know. I've run out of casting ideas for now.
No, I think.
But it's an interesting question.
Oh, the scissors. So, she's being pulled one way then the other way, and internally she's feeling this and then that. Which way is up?
Oh, initially, another bit true. Originally, this was conceived for two men. It would have been a gay relationship.
Oh, okay.
I can't imagine that, but I don't. Can't say I
so-
see that in this necessarily,
Oh gosh. So,
except for the anal
okay,
sensations, perhaps. But
so the this isn't really. I gotta say, I prefer. There's some other Bertolucci films that I prefer.
it's not the nicest thing to watch this scene. This is where Marlins gets penetrated, and he's saying really disgusting things.
He's talking pretty dirty.
Yeah, it's totally degrading, animalizing kind of.
So having watched her, he's describing a ritual. He's describing bestiality and
it's
killing
almost
the animal.
satanic.
Yeah. Is that part of his past? Do you think, or is some sort of collective unconscious drawing that up in his mind?
He's trying to think of the worst thing he can think of, and really he's going for iconic things like
Dead pigs,
flatulence and pigs and dead animals and whatever.
You look like the caricature of a whore.
Now here we have the scene where Marlon goes to visit the body of his deceased wife and has a monologue with her.
Is there any love in this? This is like a man who hates her, surely. Does he hate her or does he hate what she's done to him?
Well, that's exactly right.
Is it?
Well, that's the question. That is the right question.
It is, okay.
I think he obviously had some feeling for her because he sort of...
Well, he's traumatized.
He is moved to tears here.
If he didn't have any feelings, he wouldn't have.
But he's incredibly angry at her. But then again, he's incredibly angry with everyone.
So this is the old... This is the old thing where you would lay the body and say, wow, isn't she beautiful? So you would lay out the body and at some point you then have the funeral, but not immediately. There's this transition phase.
Yeah. So this is all very fresh.
Yeah,
we should remember. So actually it wouldn't be 3 weeks. All this would be a matter of days if the body is still lying there.
I think 3 days.
Yeah. Maybe. You wouldn't leave a body out for more than a week.
Yeah, it begins to...
even if you were wheeling it up to the freezer in between visits.
No, that doesn't help. I'm sure. They really have to. It depends if they're going to burn it or if preserve, for a coffin burial or whatever. It depends. But so Brando does this stuff really well. You can put a camera on him. Wow, isn't she a looker?
Yeah.
But a hard beauty, isn't it? We can imagine her being quite cruel to him, perhaps.
Yeah. He's cold.
Yeah. So
he's angular.
Yeah.
Sharp.
And he's just making everything very base. Why is he making it base? To lessen? Because it was important to him. By making it base, he's trying to diminish its importance to him.
I think where he is, he can't sort of have much of an elevated sort of attitude about anything much.
Right. He's been ruined.
He sort of degrades everything and everyone all through the film, really.
But
he does break at one point here and display a lot of tenderness towards her, where he takes the false eyelashes off her because that's not how
she wouldn't have liked that.
Thinks he would, but he thinks that's false, and he definitely hates anything false. He wants to crack any facades that he encounters.
Yeah. So we finally get some backstory. So he was trapped, or he felt trapped by this situation, and she has, in a way, released him, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he's
the husband's double. There we are.
Yeah. It's like he's sort of saying he never really had much of a goal in life. He kind of just wandered into this situation. He's very much in the moment, kind of.
There's plenty of people who are willing to make use of you if that's your attitude to life. There's lots of career options for you.
Yeah.
Assuming that you have something, I don't know, worthwhile or attractive or advantageous to them otherwise. No.
Yeah. Well, he wouldn't just take anything. Obviously, he could still be discerning. In fact, he criticizes everything. So
he wishes that she rots in hell.
Yeah.
And it's lies. Okay. So he feels betrayed. That's the thing.
Yeah, he does sort of hate anything fake. As a general.
This is so weird. It's almost like she's going to jump up and yell at him, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, how dare you say that? I mean, he's getting it all out now. He didn't get a chance to.
Well, it's like their last fight, isn't it?
Oh,
now he can win.
He can finally win.
And yet he doesn't win, because ultimately he doesn't get an answer about what the hell were you doing, and why have we wound up here, and how did we get here? And there's the pigs again.
So, pardon me. So, who's the pig then? Is there a man who was this pig? Not the guy downstairs, not the fairly agreeable lover, but maybe there was another character.
I think he's just swearing at this point.
He's just being nasty.
And now
and then he switches.
And now it breaks us. He's suddenly tender, and he actually resists this side of himself, I think. Because that's how he got into trouble in the first place. I guess he let himself get hurt.
This is not well lit. That's a pity that isn't clear. It isn't clear that he took off.
Yeah, they didn't block it out in advance and work out that there was going to be a shadow.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. Yeah, it's not clear.
But yeah, he's constantly wanting to tear aside the facades.
It's a terrible kind of situation. That's the thing. He doesn't know why she did it, so he's still puzzled.
He doesn't know. He doesn't know much, really. He doesn't know what to do with himself. Doesn't know what happened. Doesn't know how he got here or why.
Mr. Existential.
Doesn't know where he's going with Maria, really. He knows he doesn't want it to stop, but
reacting. And again, in a weird way, I'm looking at this scene. I'm still thinking, could this be a murderer who's self-mythologizing?
Yeah, it's not impossible. This could happen if he murdered her, but
someone's going to interrupt.
It's terribly likely.
Of course, nowadays, what people would say, get over it, move on.
Well, he's not going to let anyone see him in this state. He's going to be totally back in control before he walks out that door.
Well, it passes with control.
Probably take it out on, I think it's the mother again.
Yeah, well, that's what she's good for.
He'll punish her for everything, just one more time.
It just feels unreal. This film
just
feels
this
unreal.
is okay. This is the scene where the prostitute has brought this man, and he will beat up on this guy as well. He'll actually physically attack this guy in a few moments. And see, Marlon doesn't care what they want. He's just looking at them.
He's crying.
And deciding what he wants to do. He doesn't care what they want. He's going, how can I make the most of this situation?
He's just been accusing his wife of being a whore, and now he's presented with a
right.
prostitute.
Yeah, I guess so. It wasn't, but then she was having an affair, so I guess there's some meat to that.
So she doesn't know about the suicide? Is that?
Oh no, I wouldn't imagine so.
Oh, he's gone.
And happy now, that guy is scared off me. Interesting that he apologises rather than
go get him. Be my pimp.
Just lets himself be manhandled out the door, only because he hasn't decided what to do yet. by the time he catches up with the guy, he'll decide, yep, what I want to do is beat up on somebody again.
But I don't know, I just don't see Brando in the scene, in the life that, he's meant to be living in this film.
Why not?
He just seems to be this thing that dropped out of the sky on that bridge, and he's going through the motions.
Yeah.
It's like an angel.
That is something about Brando. He never sort of gels with anyone around him. He's just this unique individual, really. He's always a bit like that.
Well, that's terrible for an actor.
Well, it isn't. It makes him special, but at the same time, you always think, I'm watching Marlon Brando rather than getting lost in the character.
That's true. He's reinventing himself.
I don't care if I found you. I just want to hit you. Well, he's sort of finding himself having something in common with this guy because the marriage and infidelity thing, and that's what he hates about him. He reminds him of himself.
Oh, he's really throwing him around. Oh.
Yeah, he's just taking it out on him. It doesn't mean anything, really.
Well, if you were to remake this film,
he sort of gives that shruggy look at the end. Oh, well.
If they were to remake this film, and I'm not saying this seriously, but this is the exercise, right? You'd do it as the gay relationship. That's what you'd do. You'd make it he goes in an
if you
entirely
wanted to
different
be
direction.
as controversial as this, you would have to break
some
convention, I suppose.
Well, I don't think you would be, actually.
To another degree.
I don't think making a gay would break rules. It would be actually in accord with.
I wouldn't break a rule. It would just, cross a certain line of expectation.
It would mean that a mainstream audience would be seeing the anal stuff. Is what that means, right? And the thing is that could a young man be this character, be the Maria character? I don't think we would feel for a young man in quite the same way, perhaps. You would.
No.
How young can you go, right?
We would be more inclined to ask, why don't you just get out of the situation, young man? Whereas,
because she's a woman, she's meant to subscribe to self-torturing.
in terms of norms and things we are sort of conditioned to tolerate. Yes.
Well, so because women make bad choices when it comes to partners, that means that they want to be abused, or they.
No.
I'm setting you up.
No.
Obviously, when I say that.
I think we would. Well, the fact is, we would understand that relationship less because it's not sort of as iconic, I suppose, especially in terms of cinema, as a male-female relationship, and less rich with expectations and norms.
So what do we have here? We have.
But I'm happy to say I have no right to an opinion about that because it's.
You have a right to an opinion. It's the 21st century. Everyone has opinions about everything.
Yeah.
No one pays any attention to them, but you can have an opinion.
I'm happy for some gay men to make a call on those sorts of questions about how this would work as a gay romance. Gone bad.
Well, I think it would close the film in a certain way, and it would open in another way. That's basically it.
Right.
I don't like remakes, so when I play with that idea in these conversations, it's really in that sort of. It's almost geometric. It's like if a film is like a geometric form, what happens when you change the geometry? And what's left? What changes and what remains the same? And what does that tell you? So when you flip, this is a standard technique, right? So if you have a situation and you want to see if it's sexist, you just flip the genders of everyone in the situation. Right? You see, what obtains, and then you begin to see how. Oh well. I cared about this character when they were female, but now it's a male. I could kill this, or vice versa, or whatever it happens to be, right? So here she is. She's trying to reconnect, right? So she's really distraught.
And
then this, she's going to introduce him to her secret life.
Well, not really. They just. Well, she's kind of. I forget who owns the apartment. I think Brando actually took the apartment.
He rents it, doesn't he?
But he rented it. So this is kind of weird that she's saying, come to this apartment and we could live here. That's really quite odd. Anyway, I think the point is that he just smells that there's something bad going on here. And he says, no, this place is not nice. And he will walk out of there.
Yeah, we're getting his romantic notions of they're almost like boxes waiting to be ticked.
Yeah.
I have this expectation of you, and she's like, I don't know if I want to be all that stuff. He's casting her in his film, but he's also casting her for this relationship in his life. I mean, the man in this film just want to situate her, I think.
Yes. Yeah, he's trying to arrange all his little things in place for himself, and she's just a piece of that. It's true.
The translation said, "Who are you?" But I think he was presumably saying, "Where are you?" Why would he say, "Who are you?"
Well, she's playing a part, maybe. Yeah.
So is she trying to recapture something of the adventure that she had, or is she just using this location to begin a new chapter? Because is this about what happened before, or is it about what's going to happen in the future?
Well, now that I'm thinking about this scene, I don't find it makes a lot of sense, because it's not her apartment. It's the last place she should want to bring this guy, really.
She should... Well, she's misrepresented it to him, hasn't she?
Yeah, totally. Well, this is a place of innocence and a fresh start. It's actually totally...
maybe she wants it to be.
Corrupted by this other thing that's going on that he knows nothing about.
How we live. She invent gestures, words. It's all artifice for this guy.
Yeah.
And for Brando, it's...
yeah.
Yeah, Brando's like Miles Davis, right? I think we've discussed Miles Davis in other podcasts, but total obsession with the new, right? And the fresh and the original, and he hated going through the motions. He hated redoing anything, right? So he would just, this incredible driving force in jazz. I mean, is Brando this sort of character, but in some sort of incredibly time-compressed, emotional kind of way, whereby, he doesn't want to do what he's done. He wants to find something genuine and new and real. And
you're talking about the character?
Yeah, the character.
I don't think he's got to that stage yet. I think he's just stumbled into this situation and taken advantage of it. But that is where... Well, he's looking for a future.
Is he? Do you think he's... I mean, is he just about to clock out, Brando?
Well, he didn't feel like he had one, but now there's something new in his life, which obviously at least makes you think about a future.
Oh, she's closing the shutter at the open.
But that's the nature of the tragedy, which this film is, a tragedy.
Yeah. Beautiful building.
It's about a dream that's not going to come true.
Well, does Brando have a dream? Does she have a dream? Really?
He's sort of learning to live again, but in a way that's doomed to failure.
It's just too soon. I mean,
it's doomed to failure.
The wife is actually there in the room.
But then the marriage, you get the sense the marriage is long dead anyway. He's really just grieving. It's not like he's suddenly got someone who is close and warm with him who's suddenly not there.
He's got a different outfit.
Yeah, so now we're kind of into Act 3, where I think this whole film works really well. There's no more meandering. It's really clear what the story is about, and it will come to a strong conclusion.
That's almost his first smile at her, I think.
Yeah. Well, he's a changed man now. He's making this whole new proposition that we stay together, I tell you who I am, we become a couple like normal people.
Okay, so there was a purgation.
Everything that he told her they shouldn't do at the start, and now she's gone in the opposite direction. She doesn't want to know who he is. That's what I sort of said before. They've actually travelled the same arc in opposite directions.
Yep.
And this whole ballroom tango thing really makes all this... Well, it doesn't make it work. It's just another great thing about this whole end to this film, I think. I mean, I think this is now a really great European art film from here on.
So he's unfolding himself now. He's engaging in a romantic way. He's opening himself.
And yet he's still the same person, because he's got nothing but contempt for all these people dancing around him.
Well, this is the reason to take the role, I think, as an actor. The transition.
Yeah.
Yeah, Maria Schneider, she did a bit of this, didn't she, in the film? So she's a sort of a catalyst for an older male character.
Mm.
I thought this to talk about Inception again, which I think really looked like that walkway along that bridge did look like that mirror scene from Inception.
Yeah, I think it was I
think
it was the same place. Yeah.
Just done in summer or something. This looks more like autumn or something. But anyway, I felt that one of the things that worked very well with Inception was the way in which what's the tiny little miniature, the very petite girl, Emma something?
I know who you mean. And she's quite famous, but we nevertheless can't recall her name right now. Ellen Page.
Ellen Page,
there we go.
So, I tell you what, man, I know why I said that Leonardo DiCaprio would be the redo, because they did the scene. You got Leonardo DiCaprio and Ellen Page walking along that passageway in Inception.
Right.
Doing, they've redone the scene. Yeah. Obviously, it's very clear that that was a read.
Well, visually, was there anything more than that?
Oh no! I mean that was the scene where they're introducing the way in which the technology of the dream works.
That's great with that mirror, the way they've.
And they edited the cameraman out of the scene, so I think it was a steady cam, and they went in digitally into each iteration of the image of the mirror. Very nice. But the thing is, what I'm getting at is that this dynamic of a middle-age-ish guy who is fairly hard-boiled, and yet when the right female character is present, this young woman young girl transitioning into womanhood, we as an audience accept very naturally, I think, I'm arguing, that he should blossom in a way. It's like a second flowering, the flowering of your youth.
Yeah.
But, in a sense, there's this sense in which perhaps life toughens one. But there's this renewal, it's a renaissance. But yeah, this is the tragedy, is that she's not ready. I mean, she's not going to... But what I want to get into now is what queered it. I mean, is there anything that would have allowed her to be in a position where she would accept this offer? I mean, what would have to not happen or have happened to allow her to not be so sour in this scene and to be joyful? I mean, what would need to have taken place?
Yeah. Well, obviously the other guy is drawing her away, the filmmaker guy.
But effectively, I think he doesn't seem to have any causative kind of...
Yeah, I find him quite an unsatisfactory sort of partner for her. If we love her, he's not good enough.
I don't even know. It's so strange.
But I think I think some of the things that Brando is now telling her are really not good things about the life that they could have together.
Right.
I mean, he says that he has no friends, was one thing.
He's not selling himself, but he doesn't want to. Right?
And they're just going to actually not have anything to do with anyone else and go and live on a farm somewhere, which is not what a young person wants to hear.
And they won't have children. He said that he can't have children.
Yeah. So it's really going to be just a continuation of what went on in that hotel room, which is not a life for a 20-year-old to look forward to.
Can it be sustained? I mean, can an animal moment of lust, a lusty weekend, can that be sustained beyond a bunch of time? I mean,
well, I think she has to end at some time, and she thinks now is probably as good a time as any. In fact, it's probably a very good time because he's now getting serious, and it's better that's sort of nipped in the bud.
So this is the tragedy for the older male audience, is that, and we're not young men, right? So we should identify with this, and we should say, let's use ourselves, right? So, he's been through a trauma, but he survived. Okay. He needn't have. He could have committed suicide. He could have killed someone. Right? He's trying to integrate these aspects of his character, his past. And that's all sounding great so far. The problem is that, I guess, is he now essentially seeking to use her as a bridge into a new life? Whether she wants it or not, in a sense.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that once he begins being conciliatory to her, rather than just sort of grabbing her and having semi-consensual sex with her, she seems to resent him. There's essentially what she seems to loathe, this new Mullen, I mean, she doesn't seem to like any part of it.
Yeah.
There's disgust, but the thing is why is she disgusted? I mean, we're getting the smile now because this is a reversion, perhaps, in childhood or something. But and I think she's a showboat. I think she is probably she does like to be the center of attention, perhaps. Maybe she likes the idea of this audience, perhaps, rather than.
Well, I got that, which would surprise me because I didn't remember it this way. But she does still like him, but he's just he's impossible, and she has to.
Does she like him, or does she like what he does to her? This is the old...
Well, she's still smiling and laughing.
Yeah, the minute they get onto the dance floor in front of an audience and they start disrupting activities, she likes it. Maybe she's a bit of a punk,
Right. Yeah.
And they're ruining this competition. This is very disrespectful.
Yes.
And the judges, look at the consternation of the judges. Alors, qu'est-ce que c'est?
Yeah.
Please, sir, please do not interfere with tangoists. You like tango music? I love tango music. I think it's great.
Dun, 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 dun.
That's fabulous.
Sure.
Oh, look. See, it takes a woman to come out and shoo him off. What are you doing?
So what does this mean, this tangoing? Anything? I think it's something from them, obviously, to rebel against. I mean, they're the...
Structure?
They're the flaming lovers, and this is the conservative world that lovers always, disrupt.
He's sweeping her off her feet. Whether she wants it or not.
He hasn't really changed. He's still just into abusing pretty much anyone he encounters.
Oh, dear. In a weird way, this almost runs like a Groucho Marx scene, except
exactly. It's like a Marx Brothers, because that's what the Marx Brothers do. They just go from place to place and they abuse whoever they encounter.
That's really true. Yeah.
And another interesting thing I noticed about the first Beatles movie is exactly like that. Hard Day's Night.
That's
they
a weird
just go
film.
from place to place, abusing, making fun of people and satirizing them. And anyway, that's kind of off the point. And now they've gone to a dark place.
With a languid film like this, we have a duty to be extemporaneous. And we always are extemporaneous, but we have a duty to sort of go on excursions, I think. It's finished.
Well, just to say, it's nice that they've now moved to a dark place, physically, and metaphorically, and whatever else emotionally.
She's out of here.
Yeah. I think she's not going to smile anymore.
But who ruined it?
Or laying down the law.
Does the end of the relationship occur when she starts seeing things clearly, or is it really about her love for the other man? Because I didn't think the other man seemed significant enough to be causing this.
Yeah. If we came back for part 2, I think she'd be with neither of them, actually. I mean, he's the young man who she's going to get involved with at age 20 and then divorce at age 25 or something.
Oh, really? A starter marriage?
Yeah.
Oh, people like starter marriages.
Yeah. Wow, they're just butting heads here and there's no subtitles. I guess there must be music. We do tend to watch these without much sound going on.
Yeah, there's a sort of a jazz band in the background. It's tango-y kind of music, actually. What do I got here? And sort of tango-y. All right, so she's walking
She's
away.
moving out. It's come down to butting heads and no words, and no, he's going to chase her. No, we know we're in trouble.
Oh dear. He's making a spectacle of himself. He's good at that.
Yeah.
See, this is perhaps why Americans have this bad reputation in Paris, not being genteel. Oh no. Off she goes. Yeah, well, this can't end well.
Yeah, well, I mean...
The Office of Tourism in Paris.
An old man chasing a young woman down the street.
Yeah,
I mean, people are going to interfere, really.
With his belt untied and his fly open? Yeah, pretty much. Nowadays, someone would be tasing him at this point. Get down there.
Yeah.
Good music.
Oh, there is some great music in this film, which we haven't been able to listen to really as we speak, but nice job, composer.
What is this, station? What is this?
I don't know, it's the nice French-looking glass and steel there.
She's had enough of him. But is she getting rid of him, or is she just sort of making a scene with him?
No, I think she... Well, Yeah, who knows? She might turn up at the flat again a week later, but it's certainly reached the lowest point it has, and it's the first time she has said, "Look, that's it. Goodbye."
Avec lui et eu contre le. I wonder what that means. Something political, perhaps?
Now he's sort of being sour grapes. A bit of sour grapes now. Never liked you anyway.
Yeah, whatever.
You're not that hot.
Yeah. He'll find someone else to stick.
Unfortunately, she's led him to the parental home, and he's now going to chase her in there, and that's really crossing a line. When you bring when the crazy lover comes to your parents' house, that's when it's just all gone too far.
Well, she. How many times has she? Fuck the police. How many times has she done this though? I mean, is this the first time she's brought some madman home? Is this like standard procedure?
I suspect not.
She's been a good girl up until now. This is
like a horror movie now.
It is actually, but yeah, she's really getting distressed. Who wouldn't be?
Yeah.
But I don't know. Is she still? Is this still somehow exciting for her in some weird way? I have no way of telling it now. I can't read this girl.
Yeah. No, I would say women to read this as a fearful moment.
How old
some
was
unwelcome
Brando?
attention.
He's gotten tired. How old was he, I wonder, at this point?
40-something, I'd say.
40s or 50s?
I don't think... I would say late 40s.
Late 50s? Late 40s?
Late 40s, yes.
I think so. That's probably about right.
But, we could think of him as 50, I guess. He's in good shape. He could be 50.
Dear, dear.
Now, forcing his way into the home. No, this is not good. And the gun.
This is the title shot.
He's
now getting into. Oh yeah, we showed the
ultimate prop, the gun.
Yeah. She's not going to blow him away right in the front room, is she? Oh well, if it comes to it. Why would she kill him?
Well, it's not clear that she does it. Decides to pull the trigger. It's more like one of those things. Oops, I shot him, or something.
He's being playful. How could you shoot?
Yeah, but it's a menacing sort of playfulness, isn't it? Given the situation. I mean, what's he going to do now? Do it on the living room floor?
Well, what has he done to her that he hasn't? I mean, what could he do to her that he hasn't done already?
Get the butter on the on the parents' rug.
No, he wouldn't do the same thing twice. He'd find some other condiment to.
Oh yeah, but
he says he loves her.
In spirit, he pretty much does the same thing every day.
The name.
I want to know your name. Bang. That's my name.
Did she say anything? It didn't come up in the subtitles. Hat, she said.
Our children. No, I got the feeling that I think she did pull the trigger, but it was a moment of terror rather than I want to kill this guy, because there was an instant look of regret afterwards.
It was like she was going to say, "Here's my name." I thought she said, "Hey."
And so poor Marlon, he's finally found a way out. Not the way that he was looking for.
Sure you go.
Now, what are his last words here? Come on, subtitles?
No, you gotta listen, man. It could be in English, you see. Wow, he's broken the third wall. He's looking down the barrel.
And we got cut from the point of view that isn't a point of view. Is that what you meant by that?
So
you think it's the character's point of view, but then the character appears in the frame. It's probably a word for that.
Okay, so he's dead.
He looks like a dead rat there, doesn't he? In the corner.
So how's she going to explain this to Mummy?
Oh, well, that's exactly where we now go.
He's my 50-year-old boyfriend that I killed.
But no, this is the wonderful conclusion that takes us back to the start of the film. I don't know his name. I don't know who he is.
How do you introduce him? Well, like case, you just say some crazed man, broke into.
Yeah, that's exactly the story. I don't know who he is. He's a stranger. I don't know his name.
She's mythology. Well,
I think that's one of the great endings.
This is one of the
great endings.
She's self-mythologizing as well, and that lends credence to the idea that he may have murdered his own wife and was self-mythologizing.
Oh, hang on. Where are you getting that?
Well, the fact that one character is self-mythologizing makes me wonder now whether or not
how is she's self-mythologizing? What do you mean by that?
She's getting her story straight, right?
Right. Yeah.
She doesn't actually know his name.
Yeah.
And she's saying, well, then I truly can say that he did rape and do all that other stuff.
Yeah.
And there's truth to that, right?
Mm.
But what I'm saying now is I wonder now whether Brando,
the end.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I now wonder whether Brando may be implicated in the wife's death even more now. Because, if one character can self-mythologize, then another one can as well.
Yeah.
I think. But, fascinating film. Now, with this, when we joke about remakes and stuff, I mean, what I'm in a sense doing, is I'm suggesting that this film would never be made today.
Yeah.
I think that if the script was presented, can you imagine a committee signing off on this? I mean, it would have to be, this is auteur territory. This is personal. If you have the finances to pull it off, you can give it a shot, and maybe someone will distribute it. But no guarantees, I would think.
Well, it's been borrowed from with films like 9.5 Weeks.
Sure.
Has been cited as reminiscent of it because of the abusive,
the
dominating relationship that goes bad. Was there another one? I don't know.
There's plenty, there will be plenty. Although not in pornography, from my understanding, the laws on porn require that sexuality and violence not coexist.
Yeah.
In the world of porn,
right?
Legally, so it's always very well. I assume mainstream. I'm sure there's fringe stuff where people do all sorts of ghastly whatever, right? But my understanding is that in terms of high street stuff, right? The mainstream is the characters are very consensual, and it's all sort of there's never any implication that there's duress. Duress must be avoided. So it's not porn in that sense.
Yeah. No.
But difficult film. I mean, I think that there's certainly films that I prefer from this director. But I mean, I'm not sure whether he, in a sense, is caring whether I like his film as I watch this. I mean, it's more like he wants to testify to an aspect of human mind and being or life or something. It's like a Freudian film where Freud is saying, don't blame me, but the human being is driven by the unconscious, and the unconscious is not pretty, and it drives you to, you fool yourself into believing that you've agreed to, that you've made a decision rationally, but in fact, you made it emotionally, and you're using your rationality to justify it in retrospect. That's my that's my feeling of this film.
Right.
But interesting, and what an exercise, in character.
Yeah.
Is there anything you wanted to?
No, I don't know if I guess to evaluate it. I thought it was. My memory of it was from viewing it in the cinema probably 20 years ago or something. Was that I thought quite highly of it. Yeah. Viewing it again, I have a lot of problems with it in terms of it's uneven, it's quite sorted and so on. But I think it comes together very strongly at the end, and I think it's it's a flawed thing, but a very interesting thing that's definitely got something going on, and it was worth looking at.
Oh, absolutely, and the ending is the ending was clever. I mean, it diminishes her character invariably in some sense because she's now reneging, or she's refusing. Well, she's mythologizing. She's saying that relationship never happened. Yeah, she's kidding herself, right? Yeah. And the thing is that I wonder now whether that will drive that character mad in time. Right. I think she's that final scene. I think she's well on the way to becoming quite mad. Right. I mean, how could you not? I mean, he wasn't.
Well, she shot him. She had to.
She had to.
Oh no, she didn't have to. No, she had to explain.
Yeah, to the cops.
And she doesn't want to take the rap for shooting him.
No.
So she was forced into a situation of.
Yeah, it was self-defense. But the thing is that I don't think she's he didn't hit her or anything, so she doesn't have any sort of wounds or anything to show them.
No.
She may need to manufacture those. She may well have afterwards.
Yeah. I guess so.
But it's I guess that's my concern, is that it diminishes her.
Right.
In that sense. But that's the filmmaker's decision. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, so well, thank you very much.
I think we could leave it there.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Bertolucci and Mr. Storaro
and Mr. Brando and Ms. Schneider.
Ms. or Mrs. Schneider.
Thank you
I
all.
hope you're well wherever you are, wherever you're holding, I guess.
And good night.